Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such an honor to be joined by Fanny, all the way from Canada, which is just over in that direction, up a bit. There we go. So, Fanny, just tell me, I know you've had an amazing journey since being introduced to Go Power Alliance, but I'd love you to tell me a little bit about you and about how you came to be introduced to Go Power Alliance.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for having me on. It is a pleasure and honor for me to be here with you and to be interviewed by you. It's great because I actually met you in the I think, Radiant Leadership Academy classes that we were taking and, on the screen. But when I actually met you face-to-face live at Activate just in San Diego this past week was incredible. There's just something that changes and it switches. And it's like, I feel like I've known you forever. Which is wonderful.
So true. I love that.
Yeah, so I'm actually from Canada, West Coast, BC, and I work as a critical care nurse. I've been doing that for 20 years, 2 decades now. Did a bunch of different things, and I've been on a journey where leadership and mentorship's been my passion. So it's one of those things where I felt the push, okay, I need to do a little more. I need to grow. What am I doing? What's this next phase aside from just clinical work? And so I started just kind of following, okay, what does that look like? And I actually happened upon GPA. I have a wonderful friend by the name of Lisa Vanderquack, and she was doing a pilot project in context of learning to speak. And at that time, I was, okay, I think I'm supposed to speak, but I'm very terrified. And I don't know that the stage is my thing. But okay, if you want to grow, you got to take steps, right? You got to take steps. If you don't take steps, you don't move. You stay stagnant. So I thought I'd be a little bit brave and just take that step. And Lisa introduced me to GPA through a program that they were doing, an offering. Actually, it's not even, well, I guess it is a program, but an offering called Radiant Speaker Academy. And what that was their vision is to train up women to share their story. Everybody has a story. And how can we share it with being concise, being clear, and being impactful, not just providing content, but how can we make it transformational? Because that's what moves people. That's what allows myself and others to pivot from where we were to where we want to go. And so that was kind of my introduction to Radiant Speaker Academy, which led to KIM10, which is Kingdom Impact Message in 10 minutes. That was part of the training. Yeah, and that's kind of how I got introduced to GPA. To be honest, I was a little not dumbfounded because I came with a very specific reason. I wanted to get better with my speaking, as well as I want to invest in leadership. And so I took a class called Radiant Leadership Academy, which is also provided under GPA if you're a VIP member. And I would say between those 2 courses is how I got introduced. But since Activate, I kind of went, okay, there's a switch now. Something happened while we were there. And I go, okay, GPA is so much more than what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yes, I came with a need that I wanted to learn how to speak. I wanted to grow my leadership. And when I connected with GPA at the conference, I went, okay, there's so much more here that I'm not entirely aware of, but what I felt and experienced there made me go, okay, I need to jump in.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so fantastic. And I love your story. And I know that from you doing that 9-week course, you got up on stage and you delivered your KIM10, which was amazing. And I loved it. And I'm still sort of like, do we need staying alive? And you need to see Fanny's speech if you want to know what we're talking about. And that will be released in a few weeks, I believe. But you was actually chosen as one of the winners to actually speak at our conference. What did you think when you was announced as like one of the speakers at the conference?
Oh my goodness. Michelle Schaefer, who, does a lot of these courses and had invested in us as leaders, one of the things she talks about is, you're really doing the right thing if you're really nervous and scared and you have these diarrhea moments, or I don't know what she calls it, poop moments. Okay, not to be crass or anything, but you know how many times I had to go to the bathroom before I did my practice run? And then the day of, and even in the back as I was preparing, I'm just going, oh my gosh, God, I don't have, what's my message? Even in my mind at that point, I wasn't confident that I had a message that was going to be impactful, relatable, and could help somebody else. Because I was still kind of like, well, I'm doing it for you, but I'm not so sure. So when they announced my name to say, okay, Fanny Vermes, you're the next one, I kind of sat there for a moment going, really?
Yeah, I was watching your face.
I was like,
I'm like, she's not registered yet.
No, I'm not registering. And then, my kind friend beside me was like, Fanny, that's you. I'm like, oh, it is me. And, that just goes to show where even if we aren't confident in ourselves, but when we listen, when we obey what God has put in us and we recognize that and we just say yes, he does miracles. I'm still pinching myself going, oh my gosh, like really, I was one of those 4 that got chosen. And so for me, if anything, it was a confirmation, affirmation from the Lord that yes, this is who you are and you need to step into it. So if anything, that opportunity was amazing. And, and yeah, just learning that, you know what, it's okay if I'm not perfect at it, give myself some grace and room to grow. But now I can't stop talking. those who know me, back home here, I'm not one to speak much unless I really felt like there was something I needed to say. And now they're like, oh my gosh, you can't stop talking. What is going on? Yeah. Anyways, it's just
that's so good. And I love what you said about that every single one of us have got a KIM10, Kingdom Impact 10 minutes. Every single one of us have got a 10-minute speech inside of us that has the ability to transform somebody's life.
Absolutely.
And I remember somebody saying, but I've not got that much of a story because I've not been abused, I've not been into drugs and, sex, rock and roll, alcohol, all this kind. I've not been into addiction. I'm just me. And I'm like, but do you not realize how powerful that story is to the other people that are in that space where they think, well, I don't have a story because I've not had this massive transformation and I'm just me. And for me, it's like, I don't think people realize how powerful their stories are to other people.
Absolutely. And I would agree with that. And you know what, that very thing that you said, I don't have a story. That was one of my struggles. I don't really have a story. Like, what is my story? My life is kind of boring. Like, seriously, I was like, there's not much to my life. Okay, I went to school, came to Canada, did my thing, became a nurse, did well, had some national representation in my work, which is great. But to me, because that was my world, it seemed normal. And I got caught in this idea of, when I heard somebody else's story, I go, wow, she went through all that pain and that hardship and look how far she's come. And I had to kind of pause and go back and say, okay, but that's God writing their story.
Yeah.
So what story is he writing in me that is entirely different, but it's not less than anybody else's? There's somebody else in the world that can relate to something in my life. And I mean, that is the start of my KIM10. I'm hopeful that I'll have many more to share as time goes on. But, every aspect of your life can be a tipping moment for somebody else if you would just share your experience.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That is so good. And I love
But if we don't...
Sorry, go on.
Sorry. I was going to say, but if what I'm learning is if I'm not willing to share it, then I'm actually withholding that blessing or that miracle or that pivot or that shift in somebody else's life. And so that's kind of my perspective now. Okay, I actually need to. It's not a if, it's a must.
And a when. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and a when. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. And so I love that you said, because your story is very similar to mine in that, like, I've been working for 25 years and felt the call, just felt God saying to me, it's time to bring your message now. And like you
Mhm.
said, you get those kind of butt pucker moments of like, oh, I'm not sure I can do that. I'm not sure that I can formulate my own. I mean, I could talk the hind leg off a donkey, but it's actually taking that and structuring it into a format that is kind of cohesive. And I know I love what Molly says about saying more with less words, and I am so
Yes.
up for wanting to do that. And what would you say to those people that are in that same place that we've been, of like, well, I'm just me, and why should I take a course to do a KIM10 speech to get out my story to other people? You know, because there must have been a point where you were sort of like, shall I do this? Shall I not do this? What's it gonna entail? I've already got a lot on my plate. I'm busy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what busyness is like, having teenage daughters working full time, and, the nature of my work is almost 24/7. And you might say, it's too much, but really that is, I would say, for me, doing the Radiant Speaker Academy and being able to be a part of that KIM10 experience in those 2 days is nothing that I could have ever imagined I would have. For those who, have a faith and are listening to this, I would say, the presence of God in that room,
Yes.
as each woman shared their story, we were witnessing miracles and breakthroughs as each woman spoke. We were so different. All of our stories were so different, but there was an underlying theme of people discovering who they are in the light of God's eyes, and they're saying yes to stepping up. And I would say for those who are kind of in my boat, I mean, to be honest, God actually had put this desire to speak in me years ago when I came back from, kind of our missions trip from Mongolia, uprooted my family, moved there, came back, was a little bit, God, you want me to do what? Speak? Did you not see what happened in Mongolia? I think I totally screwed up big time. I don't even know if I did what you told me to do, and you want me to do what? And so I would say for me, it was the gentle nudge saying yes. It was 2020 when I took my first class of some speaking stuff. But this time round, I got serious and said, okay, I can't delay, because it was burning in me so much that you have to start. You just have to start, because what I don't see is God's story and his plan of what he wants to do with it. And I think it's obedience, do it afraid. And I think for me, the significance is I struggle to find that one right fit story. I don't believe that we have just one right fit story. I believe the Lord has many stories that he can use in our lives and in our experiences and mine. That's what I've learned. And what KIM10 did for me was I found my voice, and I've learned how to use it effectively through the coaching of Molly and Michelle and Lisa, from everything to being clear about what do you want people to feel and know and learn. Because really it really is about making a shift and helping somebody else out to say, okay, if you went through that and did that, I can too. And I think that's the beauty of it. In this class, you're not alone. as you take the time, it's only an hour a week. That really is it, right? It really was only an hour a week. And I would say that's the best investment I've done, hands down. And it was only 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Really, it's a blink of an eye. 9 weeks. And it's transformed my way of thinking, for sure.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think what I love about what you're saying is that I know that I've been in speaking programs before. And I still didn't know where to go with it. I still didn't know, well, what do I do? Where do I get to speak? How do I get to speak? I've been speaking on Facebook Lives for years. I remember the old Periscope that Twitter brought out even before Facebook Lives came out. And I was like using Periscope. People probably might not remember that. So I've been speaking Facebook Lives for years. But I think sometimes it's that, but I want to reach, like, I want to be okay standing on stage to do this. And like you say, there's something so different from being virtual and everything being on these little 6-inch squares to actually being face to face in front of somebody, heart to heart in front of somebody. I mean, I don't think, I know that we'd met on Radiant Leadership Academy, but to actually stand in front of you and get to know you as we were on the volunteer team was just such an incredible moment of just sort of like, this woman is like, she has got so much to bring, so much to offer. And I loved that. I loved working with you on that team. And I think for me, the Radiant Speakers Academy, although I've not done it myself yet, because they're at 1 o'clock in the morning and sometimes I'm like beyond capacity of learning at that time. But for me, it's the first course that I have seen where in 9 weeks, they took somebody that has never even held a mic before.
That's true.
Standing on stage and sharing their story for the first time in their life. And honestly, I was sat at the back of the room. I kept sneaking in every so often to sort of like hear different speakers, to hear the feedback. And I could feel it here, what that cost them, not from a financial point of view, but what that cost them physically, emotionally, spiritually, to actually stand on that stage, hold their microphone, speak out their story. And the transformation in that 10 minutes of what that did in them as I was watching them. And I'm like, this is just the start. And it's okay to have messy starts and messy middles as you're going through this process. And it destroys the perfectionism of we have to do this perfect. It's like, no, I get up there to do this because somebody out there gets to hear my story. And so that's what I love about what I saw about the Radiant Speakers Academy. I'm like, oh my goodness, they've done this in 9 weeks.
Yeah, it literally is 9 weeks. Yes, of course you have homework. What you might not know is I'm still like, oh my gosh, I still don't think I've got my story, riding on that plane, like going there, I'm going, Jesus, like, help me, like, what is going on? And you know what? If I may on stage, I mean, incredible opportunity to speak and do, but I will say I'm not that one who wants the stage. Like for me, in my world, yes, I've taught because that's the nature of my work. Yes, I speak with people because I'm around people all the time. Yes, I present or I train, right? I do training work. So yeah, I talk, but it's very different from being on stage and bring a message that's dear to you, that's personal. Because you're actually owning who you are. And for me, it was, I'm declaring the purposes and the promises of what God's got for me, even if I don't fully know it, but I'm willing to step into it and then see what he does. And I think for me, the power in the room was, the leaders, the coaches, all of them were genuinely interested in every person's success. I felt it when they were coaching me, even though it was a short time of coaching, but it felt like I'm just going to eat it all up. And then as a participant, we were permitted to sit in the room. None of us wanted to leave, but as they coached each person, the value if I want it to grow, is I take the coaching they gave to somebody else. I was madly writing things down, going, I'm taking that for me, right? Because we get to do that. We get to take a word or a story that is somebody else's, and we get to, if we want to, grab it, take it, and do something with it for our own lives. And I think that's the beauty of just the process. And I would say, yeah, I've never been on a stage speaking like that before. That was terrifying for me. I was shaking in my boots every single time. But you know what? There's grace in that, and you can only get better if you put yourself out there and grow. And I would say the other piece of the atmosphere in that room was all the women that were in the room sharing their stories, and they listened to another woman's story. I found myself genuinely cheering them on. Like, I want to hear their story. And I was so proud of them speaking it out. I mean, they were also different. I mean, emotional roller coaster. I will forewarn people, when you go and actually do the certification, you know, you may find yourself I wouldn't say it's emotional. I think it's impactful in that it resonates with your spirit. It's not only an emotional feeling, but there is truth that's being spoken that is beyond the words. It's beyond the feeling. It's a truth and a knowing that gets established. And you actually get to stand on that and say, this is part of my foundation. And then you get to grow with these other women in it, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. And I'm glad. I can't wait for some of the other stories that are going to start coming out of you, because there's a lot more KIM10 talks inside of you, and they get to come out in so many different places. And
yeah,
I'm really excited.
I'm pinching myself, Karen, because I'm like, is this for real? And again, I'm like, no, I am a KIM10 speaker. You know, yes, I am. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm excited for what will come out. And, you know, that piece is, okay, now I need to be diligent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
stay in the practice, right?
And that's, you know what, even working with you, because I know we were on the volunteer team, and that was just such a fun time. But even from meeting you to saying goodbye to you, and I'm like, what has happened to this woman? Because for me, there was such a shift in you owning your confidence, you owning your identity, you kind of almost like, right, that's it. I know who I am. I know what my message is, at least for this part. And you, honestly, you just shone. You did when I first met you, but even more so, you know, by the end of the conference, and I'm like, who is this girl? Like, watch out. Canada.
Karen, I felt it. And, you know, I'm telling some of the stories because, I mean, it was such a short period of time, 5 days, really, right? 2 days with the speaking, and then really 2.5 with Activate. But the amount of shifts, the detail. Yeah. I would say the detail when somebody is writing your story. Yeah. I felt like it was just for me. But I'm sure every woman that was there felt like it was just for them, because there's nobody who, like our King, the author and perfecter of our faith, master creator, who could weave all those detailed things that would speak to you. And you're right. I know I surprised myself. I mean, it's a joke because when Molly and them said, oh yeah, you're going to be the greeter, like you actually have to hype people up. I'm like, what? Are you serious? I need to do that? Like, you don't understand. I'm the one who's usually in the back of the room sitting. Right? And like with my book, yeah, I'm good. Don't touch me. Don't hug me. Like I'm good. So, I mean, I wasn't being fake in the moment. There's something about the presence and the joy of the Lord. And when you say yes, it comes, right? I would say the hype wasn't a pretend. It was actually, okay, God, this is kingdom. I want to participate. And it comes in the overflow. And you're right. I definitely have transformed myself. I'm like, wow, what just happened? Because I'm not the same person I was when I left BC to go to San Diego for the RSA. RSA was enough. I could have stopped at RSA. And, you know, with the Radiant Speaker Academy KIM10 training, but then we had Activate, and that was just like exponential compounding revelation and growth.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, Fanny, thank you so much for being my guest today. And I know that your story, not just your KIM10 story, but this interview right here is going to bless so many people. So thank you so much. Keep shining, keep being you. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. God bless. I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
Thank you.